Brandon is co-trustee of the Jaxon Strong Foundation and co-author of the book Don't Blink, along with his wife and Jackson's mother, Brittany. Brandon and Brittany are proud parents of Jaxon. Jaxon was born with an extreme and incurable brain malformation. Now, Jaxon has surpassed the expectations given to him. He continues to grow and progress, and despite the challenges he faces, he is inspiring thousands of people while still defying the odds. The Jaxon Strong Community Facebook page has over 400,000 followers. How many of us can claim that? So they're doing something right. Most importantly, Brandon is Jaxon's father, who is here today with us to once again lend a voice to Jaxon's story and a father's voice within the pro-life community to continue advocating for the belief that every life has purpose and value. Now, let's watch a short clip of Jaxon before Brandon comes to the stage.
What do you think, bud? What do you think? Oh, is that fun? Yeah.
You playing? Press
Get
the
the
button.
piano. You gotta get the key, buddy.
Get it, buddy. There you go.
Oh, wow.
Good job. Good job, bud.
Good job, buddy.
Good
Wow,
job, Jaxon.
Jaxon. Good job, buddy.
Where are you going?
You really got into that note.
Yeah.
That was good.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Arena, for the introduction, and thank you to the Family Research Council for hosting this event once again, and it's a blessing for our family to be a part of it. I have the true honor and privilege to talk about my son, who you just saw in that video. That video was about 2 to 3 weeks ago, and it's pretty remarkable when you have followed Jaxon as long as we have, and seen the progress every day for him to be able to respond, to be able to move and do things like that with everything that he's up against. So I have the true pleasure of talking about him, and I did want to come today to represent my family. I wanted to represent being a father first and foremost. That's why even on the brochure, the agenda for this event, listing me as a speaker, it said father first and foremost, because it really, I take that role very, very seriously. And I take it seriously because not only has Jaxon been through a lot, so has my wife, Brittany. And I take the role as a father seriously for those reasons, and because Jaxon needs the best from me every single day, and so does my wife. A lot of firsts happened last year. I was invited here to speak for the first time, and that was my first time coming to D.C. since I was in middle school. It was my first time getting stuck in a blizzard. And it doesn't happen a lot where I grew up in Central Florida. We don't have a lot of blizzards there. And so I ended up getting stuck for 2 to 3 extra days, hung around and have nearly enough clothes at all for running out in the snow, 2 feet of snow, going out and finding the Weather Channel team to hang out with them. That's a true story. I have pictures of that. But I wanted to make the most of it. And what I found out was that coming to D.C. and being a part of the pro-life movement in the community and witnessing it for the first time, I grew up in a Christian home, I grew up in the church, but I didn't realize the magnitude, the importance that this issue, this debate, and this true fight that we have, that it has. And I come to you today as a father also because I realize that, as Kristen alluded to earlier, having a young father stand up and be bold with conservative Christian beliefs in the pro-life movement, it's not easy to find that. And if I can just stand and be one single father from a small town and do that for my family, for my son, then that's what I'm going to do. So I'm excited. Another first this year is that Brittany and Jaxon are here. It's their first ever trip to D.C. It's their first time to witness the pro-life movement and community as well, and I love that. I love that I get to be here and experience that. I believe that keeping God in my family, in the center of my family, keeping God in the center of my marriage with Brittany is incredibly important. I believe that the role of a mother and a father together in the same household, being there for their son, their daughter every single day is incredibly important. And every single day I strive to be a better husband, strive to be a better father, because they need that from me. They deserve that from me. And even though I'll fall short every single day of reaching that goal of being the best husband and best father, it means that the very next day I get to try again and do it again. For those of you that are not truly yet familiar with Jaxon and his story, as Arena was mentioning, it kind of all started at the 17-week ultrasound. And Brittany and I were kind of anxious. We went in a couple weeks earlier than we probably were supposed to. We wanted to know, are we having a boy? Are we having a girl? We selfishly wanted a boy. And we found out that day that we were having a boy. We were having a little Jaxon. But the very next morning, my wife got a phone call on the way to work. And that kind of changed everything. It was the first time we heard the word spina bifida, which was the first of 6 different misdiagnoses we were given for Jaxon. But they believed then that there was a serious concern for Jaxon for his life and that he may not make it. His head, his brain, the growth was behind and ended up being behind throughout the rest of the pregnancy as well. So what followed that first phone call were many weeks, many visits. I couldn't even count how many visits to specialty clinics, looking at ultrasounds, how far behind, what are we looking at here, what's the outcome going to be? And at one point, they suggested we go talk to a genetic counselor who gave us our pregnancy options. And as you can imagine, one of the first options that was mentioned was the word termination, which I call abortion, the same thing, just the real term of it. And it was a quick conversation because we told them, well, that's not going to happen. We're not going to go there. We're going to give our son a chance to make it. You're telling us he probably won't make it, but that's fine. We're not going to play God. We're not going to make that decision. We're going to give him every chance that we can to fight and to live. The true diagnosis that Jaxon actually has, it was not given to him until he was almost 1 year old. And we went to Boston Children's Hospital. We needed a second opinion. And his actual diagnosis is Microhydranencephaly, which is closely related to microcephaly, which a lot of us have heard about recently due to the Zika virus. Now, there's no relation to the Zika virus and to Jaxon, but it's closely the same. And there's not a lot of literature out there. So when you have a diagnosis for your child as a parent, the first thing you do, like Kristen mentioned earlier, is go to the computer, Google it. What can we find? If you Google Jaxon's diagnosis of microhydranencephaly, you're going to get a few sites that have maybe a paragraph on what that will mean. And then you're going to see Jaxon. You're going to see Jaxon's pictures. You're going to see Jaxon Strong, his nickname. You're going to see articles about him that have been written because there is not a lot to be found on an incurable, very severe diagnosis that most children pass away from. And that's why a lot of parents getting that news don't make the same decision that Brittany and I did. But we did make that decision. And not only did we make that decision, but we decided that we wanted to share Jaxon. And so we created a Facebook page. We had no plans and had no intentions of it growing the way that it has. As Arena said, there's now over 400,000 people around the world, I think in over 70 different countries, that follow any post that we write. And all I have to do is put a picture of Jaxon up there, and there's like 15,000 likes just because he has cute hair or something. So it works. But that wasn't our purpose. That wasn't what we had in mind. But we found out quickly, and we believed quickly, that Jaxon's story needs to be shared. People need to hear this good news about this. And we also realized very quickly that, we have to do something to give back as well. And just to also mention, after Jaxon was born in the hospital, we spent about a month in the NICU in Orlando, Florida. And finally the doctors said, there's really nothing we can do. There's really nothing that we can do. So our advice is take your son home, give him comfort, care for him, and we're going to set you up with hospice. Because no one truly believed that Jaxon was going to make it. In fact, a geneticist told us directly when he was about 3 or 4 months old that Jaxon will not live to see the age of 2. Well, today, January 27th, 2017, Jaxon is officially and exactly 2 years and 5 months old. And as we progress and get closer to 2.5, he is showing us no signs of going anywhere anytime soon. So Brittany and I thought about, how can we share this story more? How can we, from all the positive, overwhelmingly support that we're receiving, how do we give back? And we thought of a foundation. So we started the Jaxon Strong Foundation. It is a not-for-profit private foundation. Brittany and I are the co-trustees. It's a 501c3 not-for-profit organization, and we wanted to do something within that foundation that kind of made sense for Jaxon's life and who Jaxon was. It's absolutely dedicated to our son. And the mission that we have as a family, but also within the foundation, is to raise funds and awareness for neurological research. It's to advocate for individuals that live with a disability like our son. And it's also to share the belief that every life does have value and a purpose. And we chose that mission very purposefully because it had everything to do with Jaxon, so that it also would benefit three very passionate areas of focus that we have: neurological research, the special needs community, and the pro-life community. And this month, we've had the privilege to cut our first checks as a foundation. And again, it's just two people with some legal counsel, so we do everything correctly behind it. In the calendar year 2016, our foundation raised just over $7,500. And I'm very happy to say that over 99% of that $7,500 is being donated back to three very well-deserving organizations. The first within the neurological research is the Christopher A. Walsh Laboratory, which is studying neural tube defects that Jaxon has and diagnosis similar to Jaxon. They're located in Boston, Massachusetts, and affiliated with Boston Children's Hospital, which is the hospital that gave us the actual diagnosis for Jaxon around his first birthday. For advocating for special needs, we chose the Ronald McDonald House of Durham and Wake in North Carolina. About 95% of the families that stay at that Ronald McDonald House, and we are one of those families that have stayed at Ronald McDonald Houses before, and we know the impact that can have for families during one of the most challenging times in their lives, displaced from their home. They have a place to stay with a shower, a bed, warm meals for free. But 95% of those families that stay at that Ronald McDonald House are being seen at Duke University Medical Center, where their children during that very difficult time are fighting for their life. They have special needs, an adverse medical condition, and truly an amazing organization that deserved that donation. And finally, for the pro-life aspect of it, we chose APLOG, the American Association of Pro-Life OBGYNs. A year ago, I stood on the stage and I shared one of thousands of messages we've received on Facebook, and this one has always stood out to us. It actually went into the book that we recently wrote, and I stayed in contact recently with this person that messaged us back, but she works at an OBGYN clinic somewhere in the United States, and she said, when we see, I saw Jaxon's story, I had to reach out to you, because when we see ultrasounds that look like what you guys saw, we are trained to suggest abortion. But because of your son and his story, I will no longer do that. I always remember that message, and it made perfect sense to me in that third aspect of our foundation, that we should find an organization that's in the medical world, and that also is in the pro-life community, that still believes today that even in the midst of an adverse pregnancy, that they will believe in the value of that child and that life. These three organizations are all 501c3 not-for-profits, and they're all committed to work that believes in the value of life in some way. And I've now realized that because of this, Jaxon's story, his life, has already come full circle. He's already inspiring thousands around the world, but now officially his life is giving back monetarily to organizations that it will help benefit other children and families in the future. And realizing that was pretty cool. But Brittany and I, we believe that God actually blessed us with Jaxon, and we believe that God created Jaxon exactly how he meant to, knowing that Brittany and I had to be strong. Even though I talk about it, I get choked up. We had to be strong to see the value in our son's life, to know that we have to be a couple of faith, stand strong, go forward, and no matter what happens, give him that chance. And we gave him the chance to live. The most innocent among us, the unborn child, they cannot make that decision. We, the ones who have already been given the right to life, have to make that decision for them, to give them the same chance that we were already given. So when you think about it in that way, how can there be any other choice but life? We were given the opportunity to write a book, which is right here. It's called Don't Blink. And we're proud of the book because it is very honest and open. And I'll be honest with you, if you do not want to read a book that has Christian aspirations in it and how we talk about our faith and a pro-life community and support of that. If you don't want to hear about Jaxon's toughest days, his best days, and us just sharing our family's journey, this book is not for you. But if you're the opposite of that and you want to find something of hope in tough situations, then I hope you read the book. In some way, shape, or form, and I hope it leaves an imprint on your life in a positive way. And it's funny because our family along this journey, we've been labeled a lot of things by an opposition that does not stand for the same things, that does not see value in Jaxon's life at all, that completely discounts anything he's done, any progress that our son has made, and the impact that I believe he's had on this world, and a positive impact. And we've learned a lot about ourselves through the internet as well. But through any type of negative comment that we've ever received, any hate mail that I've had to read, and even sadly death threats that our family has received, simply for giving Jaxon a chance to live and simply for boldly sharing his story with others. It's kind of the same as what every single pro-life advocate is going to have to face at some point that probably you've already faced. So instead of being pro-life, we can't be called that, can we? No, we're anti-choice or anti-abortion. Instead of me living simply as a Christian, I'm now anti-gay. And rather than organizations like the Family Research Council, still standing today in today's society for Christian beliefs and for a pro-life stance, they're now called, in some circles, as sad as it is, a hate group for still standing on the Bible. We cannot vote conservative, Republican, or against an awesome candidate like Hillary Clinton, because then we're simply diagnosed with Islamophobia or homophobia or xenophobia or claustrophobia or whatever phobia you can think of, or whatever one they want to make up next week, so it kind of gives them more leverage and credibility, or so they think, against the stance against us. But the truth of the matter, at least in my opinion, is very simple. We stand for valuing all life, regardless, and they're okay with killing even the innocent, as long as it fits into their agenda. But for our family, through every post we've ever written, any article or book that's been written, the foundation dedicated to our son, and any time that my voice, like right now, may be heard, and even though we will continue to face malicious attacks from the opposition that we have, I'm simply advocating, and I will continue to advocate for the truths that I believe in, for the positive difference I believe it can make in a world that already sees way too much negativity, hate, and terror. And I will continue to be a voice for my son until the day that I hope and pray that I get to see, when his cute little self can walk up on the stage and tell his own story himself. And I was told not to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. And she'll hurt me later for it. I want to talk a second about my wife. My wife, Brittany, Jaxon's mother, she's given so much of herself. She really has. No one will ever know the amount of love, patience, and sacrifice that she has given to our family. She is absolutely beautiful on the outside, but she is extraordinarily beautiful on the inside. When I rehearsed this, I didn't cry at all. It's amazing. And I say this all the time, that I've never met another person, another human being, that has as big of a heart, a strong will, determination, and independence, and yes, a stubbornness that serves her very, very well. And I also say this all the time, but my wife and my son have impacted me enormously. And because of them, I'm a better husband, I'm a better father, I'm a better Christian, and I'm a stronger man, except when I'm talking in front of a crowd and crying today. So, if you guys don't mind, real quick, will you please help me welcome the better 2/3 of my family to the stage real quick, please. I'll make it quick, I promise. I have the easy job of speaking in front of a crowd, especially when you compare it to the strength that the two of these guys show every single day. Just as my wife and my son have encouraged and inspired me, I want to challenge everyone out there to do the same. Inspire and encourage one another, and love and serve others still today. Love and serve others, even when you have to love your opposition, even when that opposition certainly does not return that love. When your opposition stands against you, when they hate you, when they despise you, when they mock you, when they persecute you, love them in return. I don't care how much society changes, how much it already has changed. I don't care that the same old biblical truths and Christian and conservative and pro-life stances that we have as individuals and as organizations, they're no longer considered cool or popular, and we're certainly not considered to be politically correct. I don't care. Though society has changed and will continue to change, not one page of the Bible and not one word spoken and written by Jesus Christ himself has ever changed. On the front page of JaxonStrong.com, website dedicated to our little guy here, and to the Jaxon Strong Foundation, there are 2 verses. The first is Jeremiah 1:5, and it states, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." Just from that verse alone, I know that I stand on the right side of this fight, of this issue, because God has formed every single one of us in the womb by his design, just like with Jaxon. So I'm sure, bless you. So I know, cute baby sneezes. So I know how God feels about abortion from that one verse. And the other verse is Jeremiah 29:11. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in a future." That future for Jaxon is uncertain. He has his challenges. But that future for all of us is uncertain. So how will we spend the time that we are given? For me, I will gladly continue to stand and fight for the beliefs that I have. I will fight for him. I will fight for her. I will fight for us. And I will fight within a pro-life movement and community as a Christian, as a husband, and as a father. So for Brittany and for Jaxon, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today to share his very strong, credible story, and God bless.